Hello and welcome into the Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Carter Yates, and joining me from beautiful Austin, Texas is senior writer Mike Craven. Craven, we just had the midseason All-Texas team drop today. This is from your brain, from your analysis. What is your process for the All-Texas team? Is it like an every week running document, or do you just say, hey, midseason, let me put this down all on paper now?
I try not to do it too early, just so you don't get any biases in there and start trying to hold guys into spots that maybe they don't deserve anymore. Going into week 7, I started out an outline and then after week 7 finished it up. But the way I like to do it is just plug in guys that are must-haves. Mario Craver at wide receiver, Robert Henry at running back, Cassius Howell at defensive end, like just the guys who no-brainer have to be there. Then you see David Bailey at defensive end, Jacob Rodriguez, those kind of guys. And then you go back, start seeing what holes are left, what spots you're still up in the air with. And then it's a lot of CFBstats.com and a lot of PFF.com, especially for the offensive line, defensive line, sort of interior of the defensive line specifically. So that's kind of how I go about it. I try to put out the guys that I know are for sure going to be there and then see how many holes are left.
Any big trends you saw from this year's midseason All-Texas team?
Well, it's just the Power Four getting bigger and bigger. There's 56 players on the team, 28 on offense, 28 on defense. 43 of them are for the Power Four. And I started in 2021, and it was a lot closer to 50-50. And we saw this kind of going into the season. I noted it when we were talking about the preseason All-Texas teams that were in the magazine. It's harder and harder to put G5 players on there because the best ones leave. And it's easier to get them on the midseason and on the postseason than on the preseason because you actually have some numbers to go by. But yeah, I just think the chasm is getting bigger and bigger between the P4 and the G5. The difference between the P4 schools is squeezing. There's not as big of a difference between Texas and SMU as there used to be, but there is a bigger difference between SMU and North Texas than maybe there's been in a long time.
Yeah, because Texas did not lead the midseason All-Texas team selections, and for obvious reasons, because they have one Power 4 win. It's against Oklahoma last week. But still, I think an outsider from Texas would think that the Longhorns would be crushing this list, and they're not because that chasm between the P4, like you mentioned, has closed.
Yeah, Texas Tech and Texas A&M led with 8 players each. Texas was right there with a couple other teams at 6 players. North Texas and Texas State led the G5 with 4 guys each. So I like the way that it turned out. I think the better teams have more players. The only program I couldn't fit in there and find a guy who, because you want it to be representative of the 13 teams within the state, but you also don't want it to be silly, and so you have to find that balance of, okay, let's get UTEP and Sam Houston and Rice on this, but also you can't not put a player on there that deserves it. And so Sam Houston, just 0-6, not a lot of stats on either side of the ball. It was hard to find a Bearcat, but everybody else has at least one player.
There's no participation trophies on this list. Now, that doesn't mean we can't get a Sam Houston player on by postseason, but you need to turn it around a little bit. And it starts with that game against UTEP tonight, actually, because this is going to air on Wednesday morning. Super intriguing. We have so many intriguing games we could talk about for this week 8 slate. Craven, where do you want to start? Do we want to go blue bonnet battle, TCU Baylor? Do we want to start with the highest ranked teams? What are you thinking here?
Let's go Texas Tech at Arizona State.
I love that. Okay, so number 7 Texas Tech travels to Tempe. Arizona State's 3 p.m. on Fox. Texas Tech is favored by 12.5, which makes me think the line makers don't think Sam Leavitt is going to play. And dear football God, please let Sam Leavitt, the Arizona State quarterback, play. Because all due respect to Jeff Sims, 6-year college quarterback, you'll have those jerseys, those 5 different jerseys you played in forever hanging up in your office, but I want to see Sam Leavitt.
The reason I wanted to start here is it illustrates Texas Tech's road to the Big 12 championship game and thus into the college football playoff. Seems like Baron Morton's going to play. Listed as day-to-day. Sounds like he's going to be solid. Skylar Gill-Howard probably not going to play the defensive tackle, but they're pretty loaded there. But going into the season, there was 3 road games that felt like they could trip up Texas Tech. And in the magazine, I had Texas Tech at 9-3, and the 3 losses were the 3 road games that I'm about to list. At Utah, they've already won. At Arizona State, which they are a double-digit favorite at, as Carter just mentioned, and probably not going to play against Sam Leavitt. And then at Kansas State, and the Wildcats don't seem to be the type of football program, one of the favorites that we thought going into the year. The home game against BYU November 8th seems like the toughest game Texas Tech has left. They are going to be favored in every single game that they have remaining. We'll see if they get a rematch against Utah or someone else in the Big 12 championship, maybe like a Cincinnati in which they don't play during the regular season. So things are setting up well for the Red Raiders, and they've just been the most dominant team in Texas. I still have A&M above them in the power poll, but in terms of dominating the other team, Texas Tech has been the leader in that, and I don't think that's going to slow down this weekend.
They've beat every team by 24 points at least, and you don't think that's going to stop? It doesn't worry you at all that Arizona State got their ass kicked 42-10 to Utah? You don't think they're going to come out a little mad?
Well, they might come out mad. I just don't think there's anything that they can do about it. Utah beat them up in the trenches, and Texas Tech beat up Utah in the trenches. I just think the Red Raiders are on a different level along the lines of scrimmage, specifically the defensive line. I don't know, especially if Sims plays. Let's assume Sims plays because the line says that he will, and Vegas typically knows these things. What is your offensive game plan as the Sun Devils if Jeff Sims plays? Because you can't move the Red Raiders. And if you drop back and sit in the pocket, they are going to crush you. This feels like, they take 3 university stuff, like Joey McGuire very much believes that if you have 3 turnovers in a game, there's some statistics that back this up, that you have like an 88% chance of winning the football game. With that defensive line, they are going to win every battle with an offense. Utah was the only one that could block them, and they couldn't really. So I just don't know how Arizona State has a route to win this game unless Texas Tech turns the ball over a bunch.
Yeah, I saw ESPN's Max Olson came out with the weekly stop ratings. Texas Tech and Texas are number 1 and number 2 in the country. What world do we live in right now? Cody Campbell's world.
Carter, that's right. Carter, when I was doing the All-Texas team, as we talked about, I really had this thought of, is the whole first team defensive line just Texas Tech?
And maybe linebacker Jacob Rodriguez, like he was rated the 2nd best defensive player in the nation this year by Bill Connolly at ESPN, who knows his ball too.
Because David Bailey feels like a lock. Lee Hunter feels like a lock. Skylar Gill-Howard's been one of the more highly graded interior defensive linemen in the country. Romello Height, if not for David Bailey, would be considered maybe the best edge rusher in the state right now. Cassius Howell from A&M and Carlos Allen from Houston, I think, deserved to be in there, and they were. But there was this idea of like, I think I could just put the whole Texas Tech defensive line and not feel like I was doing anything weird with it. Like, that's just how dominant that group up front's been.
Yeah, the edges, Romello Height and David Bailey, were PFF's 2 highest graded players of the week in the nation last week. Bailey had 3 sacks and a forced fumble. He's been an absolute animal. And then it's the offensive line too. I mean, Mac Leftwich, the offensive coordinator, said that they played their best game against Kansas, and Joey McGuire had joked that on Cameron Dickey's first touchdown run, he could have gotten some yards on that. And I legit think Joey McGuire could have gotten 6 yards on that carry at the bare minimum. I mean, you could drive a truck through that hole. So the trench play for Texas Tech is incredible.
I'd pay some money to see Joey McGuire run 6 yards with full pads on. I couldn't afford it. The rate in Lubbock is too high for my blood these days. But it's amazing to me that when we talk about Texas Tech, the first thing we have to talk about is the defense, and the second thing we have to talk about is the run game. That is the illustration of why this team is different. It's always been a talented team. It could always score with people. It could always throw the ball around the yard. It's never been able to compete in the trenches, and that's allowed the defense to flourish, and it's allowed the run game to flourish with Cam Dickey. So I just think Texas Tech is rolling. I mean, it's a road game in conference. It's the Big 12. Everything's a coin flip. I just think Texas Tech is the outlier. I think this is still a coin flip lead plus Texas Tech. Mm-hmm. I just think they're different. I think they are built differently than these other programs right now.
All right. I think we're both taking Texas Tech big in this one. Just monitor that line, y'all. If that line starts moving towards Arizona State big time, Sam Leavitt might be playing. And I hope so, because this would be such a fun game if he plays. All right, where do we want to go next? We want to go A&M Arkansas? Do we want to go?
Yeah, we can go A&M Arkansas.
Let's go A&M Arkansas, rivalry game, 2:30 p.m. on ESPN. Aggies favored by 7.5. They're the number 4 team in the country. This game's going to be in Fayetteville for the first time, I believe, at no more AT&T Stadium. Honestly, I love that this game's back on college campuses. No disrespect to AT&T Stadium. I love that venue. I love how they host the state championship games. I just love games on college campuses.
Yeah, Mike Elko had a pretty funny quote in his press conference when he was like, this year I wish it was in Arlington. Next year I'll be glad that it's in College Station.
Fayetteville is an underrated, hostile environment. It is a big-time atmosphere that I don't think people talk about enough.
Yeah, I agree. One of the tougher places to play, especially when the fan base is bought in. You got Petrino coaching for his job, drawing some stuff up. Obviously, Texas A&M fans familiar with Bobby Petrino from his recent stint as offensive coordinator. I don't think Petrino gets this job, but if he does, it's because he wins games like this. Like if you go and beat this Aggie team, you have a good claim for it. So that makes this a very dangerous team. Road games in the SEC, never very easy. You got a road game against LSU at night, kind of looking ahead if you're an Aggie team. And so to me, this is a test of maturity. You're a better football team than Arkansas. You have your coaching staff still intact, which Arkansas does not. You have everything in front of you. If you're the Aggies, you can't fall into the trap.
Well, what Bobby Petrino has done at Arkansas is what I thought he was going to do at Texas Tech when he came in for Jimbo Fisher as the OC, and you thought, hey, if this goes wrong, Petrino might be the head coach at A&M. He did that exact same thing with Arkansas. He comes in as the OC for Sam Pittman, who I'm pretty sure Sam Pittman, and correct me if I'm wrong, like his agent had gone to the school and been like, hey, you can get him out of the contract now. And they were like, no, we're not. You're coaching still. So where do you stand? I don't want to put you in a box here, but like, where do you stand in this whole Bobby Petrino situation? Because I know it's pretty polarizing amongst the media. Obviously, was an awesome coach there 12 years ago, was fired after an extramarital affair where he gets on a motorcycle crash, bursts a Hall of Fame meme of him in a neck brace at the press conference. Where do you lie on him being the interim coach and people saying, hey, maybe he should get the job next year?
So I'm of the belief that he was given the interim tag and they got rid of Sam Pittman when they did on purpose to set up Bobby Petrino to fail. So there couldn't be a clamoring for him to be the head coach. If you let Sam Pittman coach through the rest of the season, especially if the offense looks good, which it has, like they have a pretty decent offense. Green's
500 yards per game and 40 points per game right now, is
right.
What Mike Elko said.
And so if, Green's a really good quarterback, if Arkansas goes 4-8, 5-7, and the offense is the really good side of the ball and the defense stinks, you are going to have some people in Arkansas that are clamoring for that. Because remember, the last time Arkansas fans had any happiness in college football, Bobby Petrino was the head coach. Now, the problem is it's like looking at a past relationship and not realizing that both of you have grown and you're no longer in that same place. And like Petrino can't offer you that same love, right? Like the SEC in which Petrino had success did not have Texas A&M. It did not have Missouri. It did not have Oklahoma. It did not have Texas. I could argue all 4 of those are better programs than Arkansas. Like the spot they are in the pecking order is not what it was. And so you make Bobby Petrino the head coach so he can lose to Tennessee, so he can lose to A&M, so he can lose to LSU, so he can lose to Texas, so he can lose to Missouri. And then if you're the athletic director and the president, you go, well, see, we can't hire him. He's not any better. He didn't do anything good for it. The risk is that he wins a couple of those games, because if he does, there will be a loud section of Arkansas, and I'd imagine some of them are boosters that want him to be around because it's hard to give up on the last time you were happy.
Well, I can definitely see the Arkansas administration doing that for that play, so he'll lose all those games. But then on his first day as the interim, he fires defensive staffers, and they're like, "Oh shit, he was allowed to do that."
That's right.
He might fix this thing.
Yeah, Bobby's going to be Bobby. I mean, he's going to run the ship the way that he wants to, as long as he's allowed to be at the steering wheel. I just don't think you can allow that to happen. That's just my opinion.
And speaking, another coach, Mike Elko, talking about jobs and stuff. The Penn State job opens. It's going to be a crazy coaching carousel. I saw a tweet from, I forget what Twitter account this was. There's so many out there now that, everyone's got a check mark, including me, that I paid for, that they're basically like, oh, Mike Elko could go to Penn State, and Josh Pate quote tweeted it like drugs. But then ESPN's Heather Dinich was on, and she was on a show, I think Pat McAfee, and she said, look out for Mike Elko, the Penn State job. What do you make of this, Craven?
But she also mentioned Ryan Day and Marcus Freeman, and I think they're as outlandish as Mike Elko. Elko is a Northeastern guy. He went to Penn, so I get the ties there, but Penn State's not a better job than Texas A&M. The budget in which he has at Texas A&M is unmatched. Well, I guess it's matched, but it's not exceeded. If you go to Penn State, Oregon and Ohio State are absolutely spending more than you in the conference, maybe Michigan as well. If you stay at A&M, there's nobody spending more than you. Texas may spend as much as you, but you're not going to get outspent, right? Like A&M can hang with anybody in the SEC, and if they have success like they're having this year continuously, like that, it will only grow. So I think A&M is a better job than Penn State. You're already here and turning the page at Texas A&M. Like, why start over at a place that has just as bad of a reputation in terms of like not living up to the hype, right? I think it's time for us. I think for a long time we've considered A&M a dark horse contender in the SEC. And I don't mean just us, like you and I. I think it's time for us as a college football world to consider Texas A&M like a true SEC favorite. Texas A&M is the second betting favorite in the SEC behind Alabama. They are really good. They are explosive. Mario Craver, Casey Concepcion are 1-4 in the SEC in receiving yards. Craver leads pretty much the conference in 10 yards plus, 20 yards plus, 30 yards plus, like just a big play receiver. The defense has allowed 6.06 conversions on third down.
It's unbelievable.
Like, that's not even a real stat. And say what you want about Auburn and Florida, but they can play defense. And this offense has been good against those two teams. So A&M doesn't play Bama. They don't play Ole Miss. They have some tough road games ahead, but I think that they're going to be in Atlanta to play in the SEC championship. And I for sure think that they're going to be in the college football playoff.
Now, how much does the Le'Veon Moss missing significant time hurt that expectation for you? Does it affect it?
Less, because Reuben Owens has emerged. They've kind of traded one for one. You wish you had both. And maybe that's the difference in one of these games. But the thing is they can lose two and still make the CFP. They can lose one and probably still make the SEC championship game, depending on how tiebreakers go. But you can lose one of these games. You can lose two of these games and still play meaningful football in December and into January. They have Samford on the schedule, so they're basically 7-0. So they need to go 2-3 against Arkansas, Auburn, LSU, Texas, Missouri. If they can beat Arkansas and hold serve at home against South Carolina, you just got to go 1-2 on those road trips. And I think they're capable of doing that.
Am I crazy for thinking Le'Veon Moss is head and shoulders, maybe not head and shoulders, but I think he's better clearly than Reuben Owens. And then it does worry me.
Yeah, I mean, Le'Veon Moss was the best running back in the SEC last year before he got hurt. Like, Le'Veon Moss is really good. He hasn't been that this year, though. Like, it's not like A&M built their 6-0 record off of Le'Veon Moss just torching fools. They have done it in large part without Le'Veon Moss because of the stomach issues and some of that, so I think they've been used to not playing with him, and that gives me confidence that they continue to do well without him.
I just feel like Reuben Owens is not near as explosive at 100% as Le'Veon Moss is, and maybe he doesn't need to be because his offensive line is so good and he can average 4 yards per carry, but I don't see him turn it on and hit that next gear when I watch him run.
And he's had some injury issues as well. And so now you're an injury away from not having either one of them, and then you are in a hole. But that offensive line is so good. I've always thought the run game is probably more of a function of the offensive line than the running back room. And right now, Texas A&M has the best offensive line in the SEC, maybe the best offensive line in the country, unless, Miami. So I think the Aggies are going to be fine there.
And then another thing to watch personnel-wise is Damian Sanford is now splitting time with Scooby Williams, the returning starter, and probably playing a little bit more than Scooby Williams. I mean, he has been electric this year alongside Torian York.
Yeah, Scooby got Wally pipped a little bit.
I think so.
He got injured. Sanford's been playing, hair on fire. I think you roll with it and use them both. And I think, like Mike Elko said in his availability this week, it's a good problem to have.
Okay, I want to talk Bluebonnet battle before we talk Texas, Kentucky, because I just think there's more storylines here in this rivalry game. Saturday at 11 a.m., ESPN2, Horned Frogs favored by 2.5. The storyline here for me is both teams are 4-2, and it feels like it'd be cataclysmic if either lost.
Carter, you're going to love this. I wrote my 3 questions for the week today. It doesn't come out till Friday, so still a couple days until people can read it. But I made reference to your question that I always hate that you ask, but I feel like it is apropos here. And that is this a must win or a can't lose? And like, for which team is it more of a must win or more of a can't lose? I think I fell on it's a must win for TCU, or no, a must win for Baylor and a can't lose for TCU. What say you?
Okay. I agree, because if you lose as TCU, you're at home. You would have lost 2 in a row to games you were favored in. And you quickly go from, hey, we might be Big 12 dark horses to we got to go fight to get a bowl game.
Yeah, I feel like this is a can't lose for Sonny Dykes. You would be 1-3 in the Big 12 this year and under 500 in the Big 12 since the end of 2022. As we talk about a lot, college football is measured by your rivals. You were clearly behind Texas Tech. If Baylor beats you with a fan base that basically wants Dave Aranda gone, then like, what are you at TCU? Like it just, you paid money to keep Josh Hoover there out of the transfer portal. Like, it just seems like the season can fall off the rails pretty quickly if TCU loses this football game.
Well, we got to talk about Sonny Dykes, and a question many Horned Frogs fans are asking: is he too good of a husband and father, and that was not a good enough football coach?
Just an insane post.
This is from a TCU Maniac on Horned Frog Blitz message board. He says, "Our football program." This is a quote, by the way. "Our football program is what happens when a present husband and father also tries to run a football team. Something has to give."
I do think that there's something to be said about like having like a psychopath as a head coach. But they just have been inconsistent. We've talked about it before. When TCU loses games, it's because of 2 reasons. They can't run the football and they turn the ball over. And I think they're connected. I don't think they're 2 separate reasons or 2 separate causes. I think the issue is TCU either can't run the ball or abandons the run game. That puts so much on Josh Hoover that all of a sudden TCU starts turning the ball over and then they lose. And maybe at home against a Baylor defense that isn't very good, you see more of Kavorian Barnes, who's getting healthier and healthier after, missing a game or 2 there in the middle of the season. I think this is a big, big game for Sonny Dykes. And then conversely, on the other side, the reason everything's a big game for Dave Aranda. And what's been weird about this tenure now is we've entered the moment where every game, win or lose, is a referendum on the tenure and on the future of Dave Aranda. And that makes almost every game a must win. But you have Sawyer Robertson. You have this really talented offense. This was supposed to be the year you broke back through into the Big 12 championship mix. If you can go on the road and beat a rival and be 3-1 in conference play, like maybe this starts back up, because you play at Cincinnati next week. And if you lose this game to TCU and then you lose that game against Cincinnati, what does McLean Stadium look like when you play UCF in a couple of weekends?
You already have a Baylor player quote tweeting opposing student sections in conference on Twitter, talking about how awesome their student section is.
Right. It can fall off the rails very quickly if Baylor loses this game.
Well, also Dave Aranda said in his press conference that TCU is explosive on offense and doesn't turn the ball over, which, look, I know you're trying not to give ammo, but did you watch the Kansas State game, man? Because that was why they lost the game.
That reminds me of Kleiman when they were playing against Baylor, like the week leading into it. He talked about how good the Baylor defense was, and it was like, what are we doing here? I don't have the over in front of me right now, but I would probably take it. I don't
whatever it is, I'm hitting
right. I don't think either defense can stop the other, not consistently. I think turnovers probably determine this game. And Sawyer Robertson at home against Arizona State had a few. In the game that they lost in the Big 12, Josh Hoover has had turnovers in the 2 Big 12 games that they lost. So, whichever quarterback can take care of the football better wins this one. And in my opinion, it's the quarterback that gets the most help from its run game. If Bryson Washington or if Kavorian Barnes can have big games, that team wins.
I think Bryson Washington's going to be a full participant. I know the guard Omar Agbedian. Is that how you pronounce it?
It's pretty close.
Close enough. He was first team midseason All-Texas team. And speaking of that All-Texas team, this is the best QB battle of the season. I feel like Sawyer Robertson's your first team All-Texas quarterback so far. He leads the nation. with 2,058 passing yards and 19 touchdowns. Josh Hoover's second team because he's second in both of those categories.
Yeah, 2 leading passers yards per game in the country. I think it's going to be explosive, but again, I think they cancel each other out. I think they're both really good. They're going to cancel each other out. Which team can run the football? Which defense can steal a possession or two?
I think I'm going to go SMU Clemson next. I'm going to keep pushing Texas back. Just let's go SMU Clemson. This is 2:30 p.m. on the ACC network. Clemson favored by 9.5. ACC championship game rematch. And Craven, I think SMU plus 9.5 is my mortal lock of the week. What say you?
Yeah, I think SMU's a closer version to Clemson than that. I think the vibes are higher at SMU, but I'm not sure what the Mustangs are. Out of all the teams in the state who have played half the season, which is all of them, I feel least confident in what SMU is. UTSA might be a close second in terms of like, who is that team? But SMU, the 2 teams they've played that are any good, they lost to. And we haven't seen them play a team that can answer any questions since that TCU game. Like it'll almost be a full month since we've been able to glean anything from a Mustang result because they've played Syracuse without their quarterback and Stanford. And so like, what do you take out of those games? So they're 4-2, they're undefeated in the ACC. They can go and like have an inside track to being a team really in contention here against Clemson, but I just don't know how good this team is.
Well, they're 10-0 in the ACC, and they've won a nation best 19 consecutive conference games. That was from Brett McMurphy. I think this was more about my lack of faith in Clemson than my faith in SMU. Just SMU to cover here because I saw this from Larry Williams. In November 2022, Clemson lost a 40-game home winning streak to South Carolina. And since then, they're 7-6, and they've lost 3 of their last 4 games at home. And I just don't think Clemson has righted the ship like everyone says after beating up on UNC and 1-5 Boston College. Teams that do not have a pulse right now.
Yeah, I think this is an opportunity to go on the road against a helmet and steal one. And as SMU is building this thing up and up, especially in recruiting of like old school, high school type of, they're moving a little bit away from the transfer portal and trying to become one of those blue blood recruiting programs that can do it from the high school ranks. Beating a team like Clemson is how you start doing that. Is how you start winning some of those elite battles. This is a big one for SMU. And like I said earlier, I think the vibes are better with the Mustangs. Like you can go and end the Clemson season right now. Like Clemson is waiting to get knocked out. Like they're wobbly on their feet. If you can go land a few haymakers and take the lead in this game, then all of a sudden the home field advantage that Clemson has starts working against them as their fans get angsty and loud and like, oh, here we go. And so I think there's a real opportunity for SMU to jump on Clemson early and ride it. If this thing gets tight and it's tight at the end, I think that's advantage Clemson just being the home team and having won these type of football games before.
I did miss Kevin Jennings with the most unnecessary behind the back pass against Stanford. Super cool, but also super unnecessary. But that's Kevin Jennings. That's playground ball, baby.
Yeah, that's like the ultimate insult, right? If you're Stanford.
Like that, I am replaying that play
bad.
over and over and over again if I'm the Stanford defensive coordinator. Like they are literally stunting on you out here.
Yeah. Poor Stanford.
I don't know if we'll see that against Clemson, but
probably not. Probably not.
Okay, let's go to number 21 Texas at Kentucky, 6 p.m. on ESPN. Texas is favored by 12.5. And I said this to a couple buddies after the Red River rivalry game. That OU game was awesome. I will know if this team is for real based on how they handle a game like Kentucky. If they come out and look anemic and play with their food and are sluggish, we'll know that, hey, this team was able to get up for Red River rivalry with their backs against the wall, but they are still fundamentally broken.
Do you think it happens?
I don't. I think maybe the offense will get off to a slow start once again, but I think this defense, something changed in the Florida game after that Florida game. And I don't think Kentucky's very good. I think Mark Stoops, since he almost got the A&M job and then had to go back to Kentucky after the message boards rioted, has not been the same Kentucky team. I think he's capped out there. And I think Texas defense is for real right now.
Yeah, not to derail this podcast, but that Mark Stoops thing is like a very good lesson to young men of like, enjoy where your feet are at. It's like he's the guy that was in a very great relationship with a very good looking woman who just like needed more, thought he wanted more, and now he can't go back home again. Because like Kentucky was the best job in the country until all this happens. You win 7 or 8 games, you occasionally pull an upset, you get a boatload of money. Nobody expects you to win championships because you're a basketball school, and you just like ride the wave. And then he like shook the cage, stepped out on his lady, and now all of a sudden they're like, well, shoot, we could do better than you. Like, it's not you that could do better than me. It's the other way around. And that's where Mark Stoops has found himself.
The one thing in defense of Mark Stoops, though, is that the super hot lady he went for said yes. Like, it was the athletic director, Ross Bjork, said, yes, we are hiring you. So it wasn't like they pursued him, and maybe he was pursuing them too, but
he should have never been out, Carter.
Yeah, that's facts.
He should have never been out. They shouldn't have even had his number. Should have been left on red. Yeah, I think this is a solid defining moment for Texas in terms of like, how can you handle a little bit of success? Because they hadn't had a ton, right? Like this year has been all backs against the wall, block out the noise. The Arch Manning quote about how like he's pretty good at blocking out the noise, and then he gets all these texts saying, block out the noise, and he's like, wow, there must be a lot of noise. that was an all-timer. I think Arch Manning has like a really hidden funny personality that I hope comes out more and more as he plays well.
Also him saying it doesn't matter what people say. That's the great thing about America is the First Amendment and freedom of speech. Yeah. That was awesome.
That was clutch. So yeah, I think, like you said, defense travels. I think this defense is well known. Kentucky shouldn't give it much issue at all. It comes down to, can Texas put another performance like that again? And it wasn't like a great performance. It's not like Texas like put up 48 and the Longhorn offense is explosive and back. But they ran the ball. They didn't make any mistakes. They just played well. And if you can back that up with another performance, you start building a little bit of momentum. And Texas's schedule allows for a little bit of momentum to be built right now.
I think when you ask me, do I think they're going to come out and be slow? I would chalk up, if they have the same performance as Oklahoma, where it's 23-6, I think it's a win. Still, They just win games like this. Like I was joking yesterday with some people. My fiance went to OU. I went to Texas. That game is huge in my household. And we were watching the game. She was like, not only is OU losing, this game sucks. Like, it's so boring. And I was like a pig in shit. I was like, this is amazing. This is so fun to watch.
You're like Elko in the Auburn game.
Yeah. I was like, this is amazing. Like, I love this. I think Nick Brooks emerging at left guard could legitimately save Texas season if he can put up more performances like that.
Yeah. Trey Wisner's emergence, which I think went along with Nick Brooks playing well at left guard. Those things are connected. That was huge because, I think most of us entered this season not thinking Texas was going to be like 350 passing yards a game. Like we thought Arch Manning's legs were going to be a part of it. The Texas with CJ Baxter and Trey Wisner, and an offensive line that felt like bigger and badder, that maybe can move forward and run block better than pass pro. Like that would be Texas's identity. And unfortunately, they just haven't been able to do either. Like they haven't been consistent running the ball. They haven't been explosive passing it. But if they can become like a solid run game like they were against Oklahoma, then all of a sudden you got one-on-one matchups on the outside. Arch Manning and those wide receivers should be able to win those, and Texas may be able to turn a corner offensively.
All right, one of the most exciting group of 6 matchups on the docket this week, North Texas hosting UTSA this Saturday at 2:30 p.m. on ESPN Plus. I mean, how is this game on ESPN Plus? This is an amazing game. Mean Green favored by 4.5, but the advanced stats seem to say it's going to be closer than that. I saw Javi Cardenas posted this, that UNT has a 51.1% win probability, projected 32.17 points. UTSA is 49.9 with 31.6 projected points. Where's the popcorn?
Yeah, where's the popcorn indeed? North Texas, not that great against the run. UTSA obviously can run the ball with Robert Henry. Kind of like the Texas Tech or the Baylor TCU game. I don't think the defenses have a ton of chance here. The reason I favor North Texas is one, a home field, and I do think the Mean Green are going to show up solidly again. But it's the turnovers that defense creates. They didn't cash in on them against South Florida, but they created 3 of them in the first half that should have allowed North Texas to build a lead. To South Florida's credit, they only allowed 1 touchdown off those 3 turnovers, and then South Florida ran away from the football game. UTSA doesn't have that type of defense. And so if Owen McCown and this UTSA offense turns the ball over 3 times in the first half, North Texas is going to be up 28-7. And then they're going to run away with this game. So if you're the Roadrunners, it's not falling into the Cassidy trap, like avoiding the turnovers. North Texas has, I think, 13 turnovers gained this year, one of the best in the country. You have to be able to hold on to the ball. And then if you're North Texas, it's trying to return to balance. What I think happened last week, I think Drew Messmaker's been awesome. When you think of an Eric Morris offense, it's the pass game. He was a slot receiver. He loves to throw the ball around. He's an air raid guy, tech, cliff, all that stuff. But the secret to success so far for North Texas in 2025 was the balance. Caleb Hawkins coming in as a true freshman and really being a star at running back behind Gabe Blair and a pretty talented offensive line made it to where Drew Messmaker got a lot of one-on-ones and got a lot of favorable coverages that his wide receivers could go make, yards after the catch, all that kind of stuff. South Florida was able to stop the North Texas run game, build a lead, and then just feast. And so I think the key here for North Texas is to establish that run game, be balanced again. Don't try to force Drew Messmaker to do a ton to where he makes a few mistakes. Because I think you're better. I think North Texas is better than this UTSA football team.
Yeah, it feels like Eric Morris has that 2 wolves theory inside of him where he is a Mike Leach disciple and played for Leach. And he talked about when he first got the job of that 07 season, or was it, I always forget, was it 07 or 08 when they Crabtree catch against Texas? 08. And then a couple weeks later, they're playing for a chance to go to the Big 12 championship, and it's a windy night. They can't run the ball at all. Graham Harrell completes like 40% of his passes, and they lose.
Eric Morris punched a guy in that game.
Things went off the rails. That has affected his coaching career where he always runs the ball first. And I think for the most part, he does a really good job of that. But then there are times when nationally televised, stadiums sold out, it's like, let's throw this ball around the yard. Let's spin the block.
I think some of that was, I'm telling you, I did a lap before the game and was like, ooh, South Florida's different. Yeah, I don't think North Texas could run the ball against South Florida, not consistently. They should be able to a little bit better against UTSA, although Shad Banks and that UTSA defense has been pretty good in the front 6, front 7. It's been the secondary that has really stunk for the Roadrunner. So, maybe this is one of those that suits up well for Eric Morris to kind of be 60-40 pass and Messmaker have a big bounce back game like we saw against Texas State. UTSA can give up the big pass play for sure.
I do think for UTSA, if you win this game, all the goodwill is back, or most of it. I don't know. UTSA fans better than I do, Craven.
If Jeff Traylor wins this game, he might show up shirtless to the press conference and like stun on some people. Like the barbs that will come out of that East Texas man's mouth if they win this football game it's going to be must watch, I think. Absolutely hilarious. Did you see it this week? When, they had won the home game and somebody asked like, you're 20-0 at home against conference. Like, what does that mean for the program? And Traylor's response was like, what did you say? We've never lost a home game in conference play. And you wanted Burke and Lepp and Traylor and McCown fired? Huh. Interesting. Like, that's like a direct quote.
Do you think he walked in that press conference and was like, hey, someone asked me about the home conference record?
1,000,000%. 1,000,000% I do.
Yeah, that Greg Luca and JJ Perez do a really good job of asking Traylor tough questions. But if they win this UNT game, it's going to be launching up some questions for Jeff Traylor to just knock out of the park after this one.
And UTSA's owned this with Traylor. I mean, they've won 4 in a row. He's 5-1 against North Texas. The one time that they lost is when North Texas ruined their undefeated season. Like maybe UTSA can kind of play the underdog card here, which, has typically worked well for them. But I do think North Texas is the better team. I think if they take care of the football and can establish the run, give me the Mean Green here.
All right, let's go to Houston versus Arizona, Saturday at 11 a.m. on FS1. Cougs are favored by 1.5. I did a poor job of recapping Houston's last game. I was so mesmerized by the shirtless Oklahoma State fans in covering up 2 sections. But I do have a stat here from GoCougs.com. They do great work over there on this 2025 transfer class. Houston's already scored more points than the 2024 season, like in the entire season, and we're halfway through. More 31-plus point games against Big 12 teams than in the past 2 years combined, and more road wins than the 2023 and 2024 teams combined. I had major questions, and maybe this is too early to do a whole like victory lap on Willie Fritz, but I had major questions about if his way could still work in the new era of college football. Him having coached in JUCO and FCS and Group of 6 teams where they get these high school recruits and develop them, and by their senior year, they're studs. I didn't know if it could work at Houston, and so far it has.
Yeah, you mentioned the advanced stats earlier. A lot of them favored Arizona here, even on the road. The Wildcats have been pretty good defensively. Houston, from a down-to-down standpoint, not necessarily fantastic on the offensive side of the ball. Arizona lost in double overtime to a solid BYU team last week. Is that a hindrance or an advantage? Right? Like, do you feel pretty good? You hung with a Big 12 contender. Now you can go and play Houston, or is that one of those where a deflating loss becomes 2 and they don't play well on the road at Houston? Willie Fritz's teams typically respond well to kind of being the underdog, and I think being close to 1 at home is going to be a motivating factor for the Cougars. They've been good defensively. I just worry Houston's pretty beat up. They're a team that's in need of an off week, of an open date, and it just hasn't come yet right now over the last few weeks. And so can they hold up against what I think is a pretty good Arizona team? Ishmati, former Texas State running back, been a really good player for the Wildcats.
Miss him.
But I don't know. Houston's going to have to figure out a way to score some points here. Amari Thomas, Stephen Johnson, maybe Dean Connors in that run game. Arizona's been stingy defensively, and that's teams that are good along the lines of scrimmage defensively typically give Houston a problem, and that may be true here on Saturday.
I know this is unfair to Teterow and McMillan, but I feel like we could be seeing a bit of Ewing theory with Arizona this year, where you take away their best player and they actually get better because they become more of a team. Because last year watching Arizona, it was just like Noah Fafita, cover your eyes and chuck it up to Teterow and McMillan somewhere. And it was so aggravating to watch from afar. And I don't think they're doing that as much this year. I think Fafita is having a bounce back.
Yeah, and Connor Wegman's getting better and better. Had over 300 yards against Oklahoma State, and the advanced stats just don't think Houston's very good as a drop. I mean, they're 128th in drop back offensive success rate. I'm very curious to see what the game plan is here for Slade Nagel and the Cougars. If they lean on the run game early, if they let Connor Wegman kind of air it out without the play action pass, I think I trust the Houston defense. I'm just not sure I trust the Houston offense to score enough points against an Arizona team that, like I said, very good defensively, very sound defensively, and they're going to make Houston earn it all. We'll see if Houston can.
And on that Houston defense, Willie Fritz said that Carlos Allen Jr. has 11 1/4 inch hands, which is basically translates to he should be 7 feet tall. So,
and he is not. He is shorter than me, and I am 6 feet tall.
That is unbelievable.
With shoes on.
Okay. Conference USA Wednesdays are back tonight, baby. UTEP visits Shell Energy Stadium to play Sam Houston 6 p.m. on CBS SN. UTEP is favored by 2.5. This is really intriguing, not because I think the game's going to be really awesome, but because I don't know how bad this can get.
Yeah, the projected total is 41.3, and it's not because Vegas thinks both defenses are elite.
Although UTEP is number 1 rated defense in total yards allowed per game in Conference USA, which also shows how poor the offense has been.
Yeah, on Stats of War, like CFB-graphs.com is what Stats of War Parker Fleming does on Twitter and post them. If you go to them, they're color-coded, right? So if they don't have blue or red, they're kind of in the middle. Red's bad, blue's good. It's pretty much just a picture of red.
It looks like a massacre.
Yeah, the only thing that is blue is Texas or UTEP's rush defense is like 26 and defense success rate. Everything else basically for both teams is red. Which vibes are lower to you? Like entering this game, like which program do you feel is teetering on the edge? Because I think rationally, the answer would have to be UTEP needs this more because they're in year 2 of their head coach. You hope you're further down the road here. But I don't know, man. Everything I know and hear about Sam Houston is like not great. And after losing such a heartbreaker last week, you come back, you're at home, quote, home in quotes, you lose to a bad UTEP team. Like, man, I don't know how it can get much worse.
Well, Sam Houston also had to kick 3 guys off the team this week. So the vibes are pretty low. One of them being North Texas former running back Shane Porter, who was actually really good last year at North Texas, former walk-on. This is a whole confusing thing too, because I know Shane Porter is TikTok famous, and I've seen the Snapchat picture of him and his commitment, like official visit, saying worst mistake I ever made coming to Sam Houston. And everything is all AI generated now. So I don't know if it's real or not, but he's also off the team. So I would agree with you that normally this should be UTEP has worse vibes and needs it more, but also Sam Houston. It's just like an entire program-wide thing where you've mentioned this multiple times, and I agree. Not only are you not winning games, but there's no Walden excitement factor that he had in year 1 of I can see kernels of, oh, this will be good soon once we get another recruiting class in, or there's a lot of excitement on social media about the team. It's just like from the social media posts, which I think they're running man down on their social media, to the stadium atmosphere where there's 200 people maybe in the stands and none of them are not related to the players on the team. There's not a lot positive right now.
Yeah, I think Casey Keeler and Clayton Barnes had like an Arrested Development type house situation, like where from the outside, it looked like it was well built, and on the inside, it can't pass any code. Yeah. And a new group has come in there and they're like, holy cow, like this is bad.
Don't lean on the kitchen counter.
Right. The honeymoon hasn't even ended and it's already just negative. It feels like in the fan base. You mentioned the players, the recruiting's not taken off. Like UTEP at least has the off-field success to hang their hat on. Like they are recruiting well and they have buzz along the high schools and the prospects. And they've done well in the portal, getting a former 5-star. And that hadn't panned out, but like that shows that there's some belief there, that at least players believe in what Walden is building. The fan base can maybe join the ride once they start winning. That's not to say UTEP doesn't need this win.
They need it.
Like they need it. They need it very, very badly. They haven't beaten an FBS opponent this season. UTEP is Sam Houston is 0-6. Like if the Miners can't win this one, like are they going to win one in Conference USA? And if you've taken a step back in year 2, that doesn't seem good. I worry that they're going to do this 2 quarterback thing.
I agree. I think it needs to be Locklear at this point.
And I think the worry there is that Malachi Nelson's no longer there, right? Like whether mentally or physically, right? If you bench him for good, do you get him back? Whereas, Locklear can like handle that maybe a little bit more.
But he also had 6 interceptions to his last touchdown pass. So.
I'm with you. I think Locklear should have started the whole time. It's because UTEP's not good enough to have a statue as their passer. Like they need Skylar's legs and his ability to go make plays off script because the offensive line isn't good enough. I don't know if the offensive scheme is good enough to draw it up right now. They need to freelance some stuff, and Locklear gives you a better chance of freelancing some stuff.
Who do you think wins this game?
It's got to be UTEP.
Someone's got to win it. It's got to be UTEP.
I think UTEP's defense plus a quarterback although Hunter Watson can make some play. Like Sam Houston looked really good against Jack State. I just think that loss is going to be crushing, and that felt like the one, right? If they win that football game, maybe that starts a little bit momentum. Maybe that starts a little bit of a roll. They tried their hardest. They played well. They still came up short. I worry that they're not able to get back up off the mat and do that again. Give me UTEP.
All right. So last game on our docket is Texas State at Marshall, 2:30 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Texas State favored by 2.5. In back-to-back weeks, Texas State has had a 99.9% win probability on ESPN against Arkansas State and lost the game, and then a 97.4% win probability against Troy and lost the game. So, moral of the story is if Texas State is up by 21 points in this game, do not look away.
Yeah, the Bobcats have one of the better offenses in the G5, and they have one of the worst defenses in the G5. And when you can't win a game that you scored 41 points at home, like you have some issues on that side of the ball. So I think if you're the Bobcats and you're Brad Jackson in this offense, like you can't take your foot off the gas. Like you have to assume you need to get to 40 points, and maybe that even won't be good enough. So on the road against a Marshall team that, seems plucky, they've beaten a good team or two this year. Bobcats need this one. You start 0-3 in the Sun Belt, and the season falls off the rails pretty quickly.
Well, this Marshall team, I don't know. It's hard to get a scouting report on them too, because the entire team is gone from last year. Charles Huff took everybody from it. So they have a rallying cry for this team for sure of like, we are, I might be too harsh to say like a little bit Island Misfit toys, but it's a little scrappy. It's kind of like it's an entirely new regime after our head coach and all the best players left.
Well, and they're coming off talk about two different vibes going into this game. Texas State is 0-2 in Sun Belt after giving both away. Special teams, we kind of joked over the offseason, Mason Shipley transferred to Texas, and like we had a hard time figuring out who the kicker was going to be like in the magazine, because it was like, well, do you know anybody? like I don't know, like we're gonna have to figure that part out. And they've missed a very vital extra point and a very vital field goal, and you can tell the offense is making decisions in a way in which they're not sure that they can count on the three. Like they're having to go for some things and maybe leave some points on the board, not trusting the kicking game, and that's come back to bite them. And so like Texas State's backs up against the wall. People are starting to doubt you. I think the fan base is getting a little bit frustrated, especially as you always hear Kenny's names in these coaching searches, and it's middle of the season. And I don't think there's a correlating factor here, but these jobs open up, the coaching carousel kind of gets going earlier, and then you lose 2 games after that. Like, that causes some strife in the fan base. But then on the opposite side of that, Marshall just beat Old Dominion. An Old Dominion team that many thought was the class of the Sun Belt, was going to be the champion and possibly a CFP type contender coming out of the Sun Belt, with James Madison being a little bit down. So Marshall's riding high. They had a pretty tough start to the season, but they lost double overtime to Louisiana a couple weeks ago, and then they beat Old Dominion. They feel like a team who's rounding into form and figuring themselves out, as Texas State might be doing the opposite.
I get where the fan base is frustrated too, and I also could get why GJ Kinney could be frustrated with the fan base frustration. Like, I feel both have kernels of truth to them. On the one hand, GJ Kinney's had the most success at Texas State since they've been an FBS program, like back-to-back bowl wins. It's unprecedented. But then also, if I'm the fan base, it feels like they've been the September national champions for 3 years in a row, where they have a big upset victory. They kind of announce their presence onto the national stage. GJ Kinney gets thrown in, like, here's the next Oklahoma State coach, or here's the next, they were dubbing him the next Baylor coach before Aranda still hasn't been fired, and they were penciling him into that job. And then last year, they go to the Pac-12 in the middle of the season after a big September momentum swing of they beat UTSA. And it's kind of like they're holding up this big trophy, and then on the field, they lose to these Sun Belt teams that they have. GJ Kinney's higher paid than all these Sun Belt coaches, and their roster should be better than all these Sun Belt coaches. They've proven they can be better than these Sun Belt teams by the teams they beat in September. Yeah,
they've been up and down. Last year kind of happened to them as well. Like the Sam Houston game was one of those where they had a big lead and then kind of blew it against, what they would consider inferior competition. I just think it's unfair to ask the offense to always be great. And right now, that's exactly what they're asking to do. Like, if you take away the Nichols game, here is how much they have given up per game: 27, 36, 34, 31, 48.
Not going to do it.
Just not going to do it. And so if you're the Bobcats, you got to figure out a way to get some stops against this Marshall team. Hope Brad Jackson in that run game have another big one because they're incredible offensively. Like maybe after Texas Tech and North Tech, like Texas State's my favorite offense to watch. Like Texas State is fun to watch. Like they're balanced. Brad Jackson is really fun. Chris Don, Bo Sparks kind of take turns having big games. Like that offensive line is awesome. Like there's 2 Texas State offensive linemen out of the 10. Like 2 of the 10 all-state offensive line midseason were Texas State guys. That's as many as A&M. Like they are really good up front. This is a Sun Belt championship offense and a bottom of the Sun Belt defense. It reminds me a lot of what Baylor is right now, where you are ruining. And nobody wants to talk about this and stuff, but like this may be all you get Brad Jackson as. He's going to demand a lot. Like he's going to have a lot of suitors in the offseason. So even if Kenny and them run it back, there's no guarantee that Jackson's back again. Like you have a really good offense and it's getting squandered on their way out the door. And this was a big season for the Bobcats, like moving into the Pac-12 to like keep that momentum off the field, on the field, and to build on the 7-5 and the 7-5 and to really compete in the Sun Belt. And after September, to your point, it felt like it was obvious. Like I was getting my 7-5 was getting crushed on Twitter, like you idiot, we're winning 9 or 10 games. And now it's 3-3, 0-2 in the Sun Belt. And it's kind of been the same song and dance. And that has to be frustrating. Not just, I'd imagine Kenny and them are just as frustrated, if not more.
Yeah, 100%. That's going to wrap it up for our week 8 preview. Any closing thoughts? Any nits to pick? Any other things we missed here?
I don't think so. It's been kind of a weird season. We talked about the P4 G5 divide on the All-State team that's matched up in the record as well. You just look at I have an Excel sheet where I have like each team's schedule, and I put a green box if they win, a red box if they lose, and like an orange box if they're idle. And like it's a lot of green on the left side where all the P4 teams are, and it's a lot of red on the right side. So hopefully the G5 teams that we thought were going to be contending, we thought we'd have 2 or 3 contenders in those ranks. Let's see if some of them can kind of get off the mat a little bit.
Yeah, and as we get deeper into the conference play, there's no excuses. These are your peers.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
These are the guys you got to be beaten. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our preview. We will be back on Monday morning with a breakdown of all the biggest games. And for senior writer Mike Craven, I am Carter Yates signing off for this week's episode of the Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast.